Hello and welcome to the Basketball Addicts Podcast. The podcast where we answer the question that everybody wants to know is how you gonna hate from outside the finals? You can't even get in. How can you hate from outside the finals when you can't even get in? But that's not the topic of today. Today we are talking about the NBA draft.
Yep.
Because this next week is on Thursday, so look out for
Yep.
that. We might be live streaming it. We're gonna figure out how we're gonna do it for us, maybe Instagram or TikTok or Twitch, something like that. So keep your eye out for
Mm.
that. Listen in. So today, if you all know, it's my favorite day. It's the day that Jason, he gets to school me, and school the rest of us.
Mm.
School some of these scouts and some of these execs
Hey, you tell
and some of these owners
them.
on the future of the NBA. It's one
That's
of
a
my
fact.
favorite. It's my favorite episode ever. So, without further ado, I'll hand it off. Jason, talk to us.
All right. Well, today we're gonna be doing big board top 30. We're gonna start with number one, and number one is not what the consensus is. I've had this guy number one for a very long time. Number one, Jabari Smith Jr., freshman from Auburn, 6'10" power forward. Now, let's start talking about this guy. First things first, you gotta imagine with me a slender frame. He's kind of built like, I guess you could say, Kevin Garnett's a similar frame to him, where he's like lean, ripped. You know what I mean? He's one of those kind of guys, frame wise. First things first, physicality. His gifts physically, he's very good vertical athlete. Very good. He probably has some pretty good highlights out there of him dunking on some people. Um, he's really good at finishing around the rim, and he's really good at quickness and lateral movement, and that lateral movement translates to a phenomenal defender. Now this is a guy that can be all defense. This is a very special defensive guy because he's going to be able to switch, because his hips are so fluid, his feet are so quick, his lateral movement is impressive. And something that I really look for in a defender, intensity. Do you put in a lot of effort? This guy plays every second of basketball like he loves the sport and it matters everything to him. And I love that about a guy, because that shows me he's probably a type of guy that's a worker. He's the type of guy that's going to put in the effort. And when you have gifts like this guy, if he's a worker, this is where his people can become special. Um, and so I love that about him. He's an intense player, defensively. So it's hard to find players that do that in the draft. Usually younger guys don't really put in that effort. One person I can talk about from last year, Jonathan Kuminga, who was higher on our board, didn't put a ton of effort in the G League defensively, but he gets to the Warriors and they're professionals and they make him play defense, right? But it's rare for somebody to do this coming out of college.
Mhm.
So offensively is where he becomes special. This guy is shoots like, I think, 42% from the 3-point line. This guy's ridiculous shot creating for himself. This guy is really good at, you know, dribble, crossover, get my shot off. He can run off of screens. 6'10" can run off of screens. Has a really good mid-range game. Really good fade away. He's really good at just shooting over people. It's very much the fundamentals of a Kevin Durant, where Kevin Durant, one dribble pull up, two dribble pull up, come up with the baseline pull up. You know what I mean? Face somebody up. I've even seen him do the rip through, where he rips through defenders to try to catch the foul call. Like, he has a very good basketball IQ of scoring the basketball. And he's gifted from the 3-point line. I mean, this guy could shoot the lights out of the basketball. There's just so many. His versatility is going to be scary because he's 6'10". So if you want to run a pick and roll with him as the roll man, you can do it. He can be a lob threat, sure. And if you want to run a pick and pop, sure, fine with me. But where he becomes special and different is when he gets on the wing and he creates for himself. Because the one thing he's always going to have is 6'10". People when they hear the word 6'10", and this draft is a great example of it, they'll think post guy. This guy can't post very well. You never want this guy in the post. Never, ever, ever, ever. Um, and he's not really that kind of guy where he's going to be posting a lot. And his gifts are Mid post, mid range, 3-point shooting, shot creating for himself, his ability to just create him for himself. And the reason why he's the number one prospect is 6'10" with his athletic gifts and shot creation ability is a formula we've seen multiple all stars. Think of Jason Tatum, his ability to get to the rim, his ability to finish with athleticism, his ability to shot create for himself, his fundamentals and footwork. This is a guy like that. Think of Brandon Ingram, 6'9", can shoot over everybody no matter what at any moment in time. He can create his own shot. He can get to the rim. Lanky, right? He's Kevin Durant's height. You know what I mean? Like that's special in the ability of the way he shoots, and he's just so athletically gifted. All he's got to do, the weaknesses is um he has to tighten up the handle a little bit. His handle's at like 90% capacity of how perfect it could be. If he tightens up the handle a little bit, it's not going to be that hard. This guy becomes an all-star. This guy, my pro player comparison, I've definitely thought a lot about this, is Paul George. Paul George. It's
Mm.
taller version of him, but less athletic. The reason why is shot creation. I've seen Paul George run off ball screens where he's coming off ball when they have Kawhi Leonard and they need to get him the ball sometimes. Jabari Smith can do that. I've seen
Yeah.
Paul George have great fundamentals and great footwork and shot create for himself. He can do that. He's got a great mid range game. He scores from every level of the floor. You're getting a 3-layer scorer, 6'10" body who's going to change you defensively because 6'10" it switches, right? And he's going to height. Why is Dirk so amazing? Can shoot over everybody. 7 foot. Why is KD so amazing? Nobody can challenge his shot. 6'10" is what Jabari Smith is. He didn't go to the combine because top tier guys usually don't. So I don't know his wingspan. If I had to guess, I'd guess 7'1", 7'2" wingspan. It's just the special things about him is rare because just like Paul George, he's going to do it in the defensive end in a special way. So you're getting a two-way guy that can be really elite and be a high-tier all-star in the NBA. And I really feel like this is a number one guy in the draft this year. This guy's just special. It's rare to have the height, the athleticism, and the shot creation with defending. I mean, it's about as perfect of a prospect as a person can be. So that's Jabari Smith.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. So I guess my one question would be is
Uh-huh.
what team do you think he would be best fitted?
I personally would choose him with the number one pick for Orlando Magic. I think he fit
Number one with
really well
Orlando.
there. Yeah, I would trade Jonathan Isaac. The reason why, man, is they need a top tier guy that can be a top tier bucket getter. And you can't look at that team and tell me anybody that can probably average more than 25 points per game in the future. A guy like this is special. And when you have Jalen Suggs and Mo Bamba, you kind of need another piece that can defend. And now you have a complete team. A team that can do it on both ends, and he fits into that. And Franz Wagner's a really great passer as well, so they can do a lot of creative things with him on ball and him off ball. And he's just, he's one of those guys that can fit on every single team because, he has the skill of a two guard. He's just 6'10". So if you have, you want to put him at small forward, you can put him at small forward. He can guard. Even if you wanted, I mean, I wouldn't put him at two guard, but he could guard two guards. You know what I mean? He can guard 1 through 4, actually 1 through 5, unless five's Nikola Jokic or Joel Embiid, where they're just huge. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, guys like Clint Capella, yeah, he could guard those guys. I think people have an old when people hear power forward, they have this mental image of a power forward, and he's just not that guy. He's just not that post guy. But
Mm-hmm.
he's special, special.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay.
What do you
See,
have on his stats?
oh, hold on a second. Yeah. Oh, okay. So I'm recording. I know you're fine. Um, so for his career, he had 16.9 points,
Mm-hmm.
7.4 rebounds, and 2 assists. That's a solid player. That's a
Yeah.
solid player for sure. I
Yeah.
mean, and he was SEC All Freshman. He
Mm-hmm.
was a SEC Rookie of the Year. This is he's 6'10", 220 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
Went to Auburn.
Yeah. No. 42% from the 3-point line is ridiculous for somebody at that height.
Yeah,
Ridiculous. It's insane.
and they don't give me the percentages on here for some reason. I don't know why.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Well, I'll go ahead and transition to the next one. Number 2 is Jaden Ivy. Now this is another controversial one because a lot of people have the big three. They view Jabari Smith, Chet Holmgren,
Okay.
and Pablo Ban Carro as the big three, but I view Jaden Ivy as the second best player in this draft. The reason why is, first things first, he's special. Just wow. I mean, 6'4", so I mean he's not overly tall. I view him as a point guard. Some people might view him as a two guard, but his gifts are athleticism. I mean, dear goodness, this is a top tier athlete if you've ever seen him. I mean, great first step. Nobody's staying in front of him in the league. He's got great leaping ability, the ability to hang in the air and change his body position in the air and finish. He has great leaping ability to dunk on people. His speed is ridiculous. When this guy goes in transition, it's insane. That's really special. He's a stronger guy too. He's a sophomore from Purdue, so he's gotten another year to build his muscle. But it's just a world class athlete. And he reminds me so much of one person that's insane athletically, just the way his body mechanics move, and it's Russell Westbrook.
Mm,
It's like a clone of Russell Westbrook athletically,
yeah.
and just the way his body mechanics move. I mean, you literally, if you literally put them right next to each other and just had them do the same move, you'd be like, are these guys long lost brothers? Like, it's just like the way they move, the way they finish with physicality, the way they finish with athleticism and explosiveness. It's special. And just like Russell Westbrook, he has good passing ability, the ability to break down the defense and find the open guy, but he's not always making the right decisions all the time. Like, his basketball IQ under situational awareness, like, okay, it's late in the game, you know what I mean? We're down by 5, maybe I won't chuck up a 3 in the first 5 seconds of the shot clock. You know what I mean? Like, he needs to work on the mental side of the game, but that's the easiest thing to polish up because you can't teach those athletic gifts.
Yeah.
I don't care how great science is, you just can't teach freaky like this. And the next special thing about him is I love his intensity, just like Jabari Smith. I mean, the guy plays with intensity. He dunks on the rim like the rim is his enemy. His rim stole his girl. Like,
Right.
he's staring at people. He's playing with intensity. He's talking that smack. Like, he has the emotional and the mental temperament of Russell Westbrook as well, where it's like, I play physical, I play like every second matters, and I'm gonna destroy you. And
Mm-hmm.
that comes from loving the game. So I love that about him, and that makes me think that he's gonna be a kind of guy that's a worker. Now, where things become special is he has the highest upside in the draft. The reason why is this guy shot creates deep from the 3-point line. Now, it's not
Mm.
extremely polished, because if he was polished, he'd be the number one pick, and we'd be talking generational prospect. Um, but it's like it's flashes of it. It's flashes of side steps. It's flashes of volleyball line. It's flashes of coming off the pick and roll and just NBA moves, NBA footwork that you see Dame have. You see Steph have those type of things. Like, that's where he becomes scary good. That's where it becomes scary special, because if Russell Westbrook had perimeter 3-point shooting, he would be one of the top 3 or the best player in the NBA. He'd be really so special. So special. That's where things become interesting. So, there's a lot to love about what he does. He has to choose his spots better. He has to understand when to shoot and when not to shoot. He has got to get that basketball IQ higher, situational awareness wise. But those things can be polished up, because those flashes of the perimeter shot creation and his ability to get to the rim is so special. I mean, It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous, and this is why he's a number two guy. I mean, you can't. I understand Chet and Paulo. I like them both, but I mean, this guy. This is where special is, right?
Yeah.
This is a special player. Um, so yeah, that's he also played two guard in college, so the point guard position is kind of sort of a projection. But there's been so many players that played two guard in college that are point guards in the NBA. I mean, Russell Westbrook himself. You know what I mean? People talk about Ty Washington in this draft. He was a two guard for his team. You know what I mean? Like, we all accept that the two guard position sometimes has guys that can pass, and college basketball has some 6 foot guys that are never going to be in the NBA that the team needs to win basketball games. Like, I think Darren Collison was Russell Westbrook's point guard in college. So, it's it's all situation, but I think he can be a great point guard. And if he's a two guard, he's still special because he has a lot of Dwayne Wade traits, and that's a special, like, athletically speaking. So I've
Hmm.
seen D Wade be great. You know what I mean? And he's just such a special athlete. And the thing you have to really understand when scouting, it's something that's really really important, is you have to envision these guys with NBA spacing. And a guy like this with all these athletic gifts is going to tear up NBA spacing with so much more open than college basketball. Um, so this is number two for me, Jaden Ivy from Purdue. I would have him as a point guard. Most people say he's a two.
That's crazy. So one thing that as you were going through, I looked at Russell Westbrook's college stats
Mm-hmm.
versus Jaden Ivy. So Russ, right? Jaden Ivy is 6'4", 200 pounds, right?
Mm-hmm.
Guess how much Russ is? Russ is 6'3", 187 pounds.
Oh
Like,
my
it's
gosh.
crazy close,
Uh-huh.
right? For his college career, Russ averaged 8.3 points, 2.4 rebounds, 2.5 assists, right? Let me
Mm-hmm.
go to Jaden Ivy real quick. Jaden Ivy averaged 17.3 points, 4.9 rebounds, 3.1 assists just for the last season. As for his career,
Mm-hmm.
14.9 points, 4.3 rebounds, and 2.6 assists. So it's like he's a better college player. He's a little taller, has more weight to him, but they're
Yeah.
virtually identical, even in
Yeah.
college right now.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Russ was, such a special athlete. You know what I mean? It's hard to pass on a guy like that in a draft, and this is why he's so special. He's got all the tools, all the tools,
Yeah.
all the gifts. All he's got to do is, I think he's a guy, he's a worker by the way he plays and the intensity he plays with. So this guy can be special, special, special,
Hmm.
very special. Yeah. All right. We're going to transition here to the number three pick. I mean, not the number three pick, the number three guy on my big board. Surprisingly, one of them has either Chet or Paulo is not in the top three, and the guy who's not in the top three is Chet Holmgren. Number three is Pablo Ban Carro. Yes. He was the number one pick projected earlier in the season, but these guys, there's some guys that are special. 6'10", another one of these freaky 6'10" guys. He's not as athletic as Jabari Smith Jr., but he's athletic enough. He's huge. I think he's 6'10", 250 of all muscle. So this guy's big. And what I really love about watching this guy is, one, again, lose what you've thought you remember about power forwards, because this is not a post dominant guy. So I want to get that out of the way first. Um, this is a ball handler, a guy that can shot create for himself. And his special traits are, when he attacks the rim with 6'10", 250, he makes people move. Okay? That's where his special traits are. He may not be overly athletic where he's just gonna dominate with athleticism. No, he's gonna dominate with size. Okay? He's gonna dominate by pushing people out the way. This guy's huge. This guy's really built. He plays with physicality. Sometimes big physical guys don't play physical. No, he plays with all of his body. So that's a good indicator, because he might be 6'10", 265, 270 in his prime. And when he decides to bully people, he bullies people. Um, and that's really special. And the other special traits is shot creation for himself. He's got the best mid range footwork in the draft. I mean, that's where he's special. He's got really good fadeaways. He's got really good footwork. He's got really good fundamentals. He really understands how to score basketball. There's been comparisons to him and Melo, which I don't think is terrible. He's that kind of guy, the not overly fast bull in a China shop, like kind of like Melo. Um, he's a really good passer too. And he really could pass the basketball. He's not like amazing at it, but 3 to 4 assists a game kind of guy. He can really be that. People talk about his lack of a defensive ability, and I would agree he's not a great defender. I don't think he's going to be an overly negative on the basketball floor, but I really think that he can be a solid defender because size 6'10". You got to say it again, 6'10", right? 6'10" is the size of most centers in the league. He's going to play power forward. So his inside, he has a good 3-point shot. It's not amazing, but it got better throughout the year. He just has flashes of shot creation for himself, and there's just side steps and stuff like that. He just has a very much an NBA scorer game. I really think that this is a guy that you can feel very confident about it being able to score 20 to 24 points per game in the NBA and be a really good player on your team and be a guy that you need to get buckets. And his elite traits, I look for elite athletic traits because I really believe in it, because you look at all the great all-time players, usually they have elite traits or overly overwhelming skill. And his elite trait is 6'10" with some size, man. He's built, and when he
He's
decides to
big.
go to the basket, like he's a transition nightmare as well. I mean, that
Hmm.
guy's coming full speed at you. It is move out the way, or you're getting an and one. It
Yeah.
is his size is what is special about him.
Okay, let's look at this.
Oh yeah,
Paolo
he's like a 6'10" Paul Pierce. That's my best comparison.
Paul Pierce.
Yes,
Okay.
six foot
Alrighty,
ten
so
Paul Pierce would be nice.
yeah, I mean Paul Pierce is kind of nice already. He's not better than D Wade or LeBron, but
Yeah.
that's for another time. Okay, so for the 2021-2022 season, he averaged 17.2 points, 7.8
hmm
rebounds, and 3.2 assists, and that's also the same
mm,
for his career as well.
yeah, one and
That's
done.
pretty cool. That's a pretty good,
Yeah.
cool stats.
Oh
And
yeah,
he
he
played
can
for
also
Duke
rebound
too.
well. Yeah,
Yeah,
Coach K guy. He can
yeah.
rebound well too. So because of size again, rebound's not a skill that you really look for in the modern NBA that much, but he's gonna be able to rebound. Yeah,
Mm.
just he's a bull. All right, you ready to
Yeah,
transition?
yeah.
The number 4 guy on my ranking is Chet Holmgren. Now, Chet Holmgren has a lot of people really talking a lot about him. He's a very interesting prospect, 7 footer. Um, a lot of people doubt his thinness, and I don't really ever think he's going to become really a big body. You know what I mean? A guy that's really a bigger guy. But what I really think he's going to be able to do is be a better version of KP. KP is a slim guy. KP is a really good 3-point shooter. This guy shoots the light out of the basketball. Like shoots the lights out of the basketball. This you let him shoot wide open, he's gonna knock it down. He might be the best wide open shooter in the draft, or he's gotta be up there in top 5. So pick and pop situations and spacing wise is going to be really good. You have some teams. There's some teams in the draft that have guards, and I could really see them wanting him because of spacing, um, because he's going to be valuable to winning basketball because of that. He's a good shot blocker at the rim, 7 footer. He has good timing. You know what I mean. He's. I don't think he's going to be overly switchable, but he's not going to be like Marc Gasol, where it's like an extreme disadvantage. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
He's going to be an average center switching. Um, but he's going to be a pretty solid shot blocking center. He's not going to be really special at it. I don't think he's as special as some people want to say, because I just haven't seen a guy be really special without ridiculous athletic traits, because this guy doesn't have ridiculous athletic traits, you know what I mean, or ridiculous size, and he doesn't have ridiculous size. His size is a negative. You know what I mean? When people put their shoulder into him and make him finish around him, he can't really do much. um So that could be a negative. But so he's going to be able to pick and pop at a high level. He's going to be pick and roll guy at a high level. He's going to be a really solid fit for that. And his shooting is a weapon. You can run him. You can set up a screen for him, and he can get a wide open look. He's a good. His shooting really is a weapon. Um, and he flashes some mid-range shot creation for himself. It's not overly done, but he flashes it, and he flashes the ability to handle the basketball and finish around the rim and those type of things. I'm not in love with it as much as everybody else because when I watched him play against 6'8", 6'9" guys, you watch him play against actual competition that wasn't getting really played much against the WAC. He doesn't really look like he's athletic enough to shot create for himself, and that's my real downfall because athleticism is just something you can't teach, right? I don't care how well you dribble the basketball, you just can't become more athletic. So people get into him. He can't do much. Um, but what I really think his potential is becoming a mid post guy. I really think that if he just went to the mid post and shot some fadeaways, he could become a high tier all star. But you just don't see him do that much in college. You could find maybe one clip.
Mm.
He situationally wise, you have to understand his situation in college was the best player in his team college wise was Drew Timmy, and he's a center, right? Or center or power forward. He drew all the attention. You know what I mean? That was the what people had to stop. And he got the face really easy looks. Like if you watch him play and watch his highlights, 6'7", 6'5", 6'6", 6'8" guys you see a lot of. And that's just not something that's gonna be the NBA. We got the freakiest players and the people in the world here to play NBA basketball. So I think that's going to be a little bit of a shock to a system. But I think you can't teach size as well, and his size and his shooting ability will always keep him to be available to be a really great player. I mean, I think he can be anywhere from Lauri Markkanen to a much better version of KP, where KP's a little bit too tall for how good he could be. If he was smaller, 7 foot, and better shot blocker, he would be really, solid two-way guy. You know what I mean? Like KP, that's his best comparison. And I think that because of all those reasons, he's the forced pick because he can be an all star. I really think he can be. I just don't see the superstar potential like everybody else is seeing because just because a guy can handle the basketball doesn't mean anything if he can't create his own shot. And I'm really worried about that because he's just not athletically gifted like Kevin Durant or like highly gifted. Like Kevin Durant is one of the greatest ball handlers you ever at that height. He's the greatest ball handler ever at the height. And he can shot create for himself because he can get open at any point in time. Just because Chet has a handle doesn't mean it's amazing. Like look at Bam. Bam has a handle, but doesn't mean he's the next coming of center god. You know what I mean? So it's it's an interesting guy. I've heard some people say some stupid stuff like, "Oh, yeah, he's just the next coming of Giannis." I mean, dear goodness, what?
What?
People throw out terrible comparisons, terrible comparisons. Oh my god. So yeah, this guy. Also, I didn't really like his interviews. I like to listen to these guys talk, and I like to listen to the way they talk about basketball. And he just didn't sound assertive like he was the guy. You know what I mean? In interviews. Um You know what I mean? The best interview I heard was Jabari Smith Jr. because his coach is like, he's the greatest worker I've ever seen. And I'm like, enough, sold. That's it. That's all I need to hear. The greatest worker a head coach has ever seen at his program he's probably been coaching for 25, 30 years and have all those athletic gifts. Thank you. Yes, please. And that's kind of like the way he plays, Chet. He's a little unassuming, a little too unassuming for my taste. He just doesn't put his imprint in the game like I have to get buckets. He's like a good team player, which is fine. Fine. But when we're talking about the top three guys, the top three guys are special. And I think there's a gap here between the top three and Chet.
Mm. Wow, that's gonna be pretty controversial what you said right there too, because a lot of guys like
Mm-hmm.
Chet. Okay, so the reason why Jason does this real quick. because Jason he understands and really likes college basketball. I'm more of an NBA guy,
Mm-hmm.
so that's where I put all my focus at. So, but when I do, watch college basketball, I look for big names. That's I'm not, So the first name that I heard ever, in when I started even looking into college basketball was Chet Holmgren.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know Jabari Smith Jr., Jaden Ivy. The first name heard was Chet Holmgren. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
thinking, oh, he's just this amazing player. And then to watch him during the March Madness and like, what? And then
Mm-hmm.
even what it's gonna be just very controversial, considering
Mm-hmm.
how much of a pedestal he's already been put on.
Yeah. It's the sad thing about, like, it's hard for somebody who does scouting all the time to get things right, because Chet Holmgren crossed up Steph Curry at the age of 16. He was like a sensation, right? Number one guy, number one guy, number one guy. You know who was also the number one guy coming out of his high school class? DJ Augustine. That's how much that means, okay?
Not DJ Augustine.
DJ Augustine was his number one guy coming out of his class. Okay, so that's how much that means, right? I don't care. I do not care what you were at coming out of high school. I'm sure your 7 foot, looked really nice, right? Because you'll see people who really love him. A guy on ESPN. I don't want to call him out because I don't really hate him that much, but he was like, "Oh yeah, Chet Holmgren's gonna be a 20 point per game guy. It's just gonna be so special, God Gonzaga, And he gets in the regular season, he has 14 points per game, and then he's like, "This is still my number one guy. It's just so special." You know what I mean? Like you set his expectation here. He did come close to meeting your expectation, but he's still your number one guy just because you have to stick to it. Like, you know what I mean? People,
Yeah,
it's one of those things, man. It's one of those things. One of those things.
man. Yeah,
Yeah. All right. You ready to move on to the next guy?
yeah.
All right. The next guy, the number 5 guy, is somebody I'm just so excited to talk about. My number 5 guy is so underrated. You'll see him in mock drafts from like 20 to 30. Nikola Jovic. Um, hello, international sensation. Who is doing these scouting reports? Cause yeah, I don't know what you're seeing, because I think you're wrong. Okay, this guy measured in at 6'11" and 7 foot wingspan coming out of the combine. So I know what you're thinking. International guy, 6'11". This is be a post player. You thought. Oh my goodness. This guy's so special. One, thinner guy, really mobile. He moves like a 2 guard. He plays like a 2 guard. He's very much like Jabari Smith. Lose what you knew about traditional power forwards. This is, the modern NBA. He can't post. I don't want him to post. If he's in the post, you're using him wrong. One, run his scheme internationally. What he did internationally really translates to the NBA. Runs off ball screens, comes off ball, shoots the lights out. You know what I mean? And then what's special about him? He's a great passer. He's the best passer out of the power forward position this year. Yeah, I double check mentally. He's the best passer in the draft, power forward wise. So you know what I mean. I can't think of a single power forward in this draft class that's running pick and rolls. He's 6'11" and operating out of pick and rolls, making good decisions. Do you understand the kind of trust that coach has to have to let a guy run a pick and roll at 6'11" as the ball handler? That means that guy's probably the most skilled guy on the team. I got that
Mm-hmm.
wrong last year. That's a really big adjustment that I made. I saw Scotty Barnes and Franz Wagner running the pick and roll, and like, they're not going to do that in the NBA. And they get in the NBA, and they're more skilled than what they showed in college. I got it
Mm-hmm.
wrong, and we're adjusting. And this guy is getting inflated because of those adjustments. He's running a pick and roll at 6'11", and it's not just
Yeah.
he's running a pick and roll at 6'11". No, he's running pick and rolls and hitting step back threes. He's running pick and rolls and hitting deep threes. He's running pick and rolls and having a good mid range move where he gets to the free throw line and he gets to his pull up. And he gets to this step back and turn around, fade away jump shot. He's got a really nice one legged fade away that he can pull from basically anywhere, okay, in the mid range where it's deadly. And he has a little bit of a mid post game, but where he hits that fade away as well. But that fade away is deadly. That one legged fade away that he hits is deadly when he turns around and he shoots that. It's 2 points. Um, it's just the skill for the size is ridiculous. 6'11", doing all this stuff, man, is insane. You know what I mean? And people, I think people, the negative is for a lot of people for athleticism. I think he's more athletic than he gets given credit for. He's not going to dunk on anybody, but he has enough athleticism and length to finish at the rim. 6'11". You have to remember that he's going to be able to shoot over anybody he wants. I mean, again, I don't know if I said it, but I gotta repeat it. 6'11". I mean, 6'11" and maybe point guard or two guard skill. You know what I mean? Like a combo guard at 6'11" is basically what he is, and that's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous. What he does for his skill is insane. He doesn't have a really great athletic profile. So the top four guys in this draft are really special, and I view this guy as another one of these guys. I view him as really, really special. I think he'll be an all star. I think it's gonna be a steal wherever he gets for him. And whenever I say something controversial like this, I've researched them 5 times more than anything else I say. Just like Chet Holmgren, I've watched 5 times more film than him than everybody else. And what's special about this is I have a lot of pro player comparisons to move off of here. Danilo Gallinari is a guy like that that's really tall, really skilled, but he's more athletically gifted. Hito Turkoglu, really good throwback. Hito Turkoglu was a great winning player. He was really solid 18, 5, and 5, where he's running the pick and roll and he's operating. He's tall, but he's so slow, but he's just tall. Hito Turkoglu was 6'10". He was the second best player in the Orlando Magic when they went to the NBA Finals. He was really integral on those teams, and that kind of guy fits better in today's game than 10 years ago. And he's just so special because of all those things, man. Nikola Jovic is ridiculous. I mean, I don't understand what everybody else is missing because just like most people can agree, Jabari Smith, two guard skill for power forward is ridiculous. Pablo Ban Carro, small forward skill for power forward is ridiculous. Oh, we can all agree Chet Holmgren is more skilled than a normal center. Wow, he's ridiculous. I don't know how 2 + 2 equal 4 with Nikola Jovic. I just don't get it. I don't. Franz Wagner, Hito Turkoglu, Danilo Gallinari 2.0 is basically what Nikola Jovic is. He's Hito 2.0. It's just size, and size. So yeah, that's my number 5 guy.
So can we? I mean, I want to see it. I want to see Denver pick up Nikola Jovic so they can be like, we got the Jokers.
Yeah, that'd be funny.
I think that'd be pretty cool. Or the Yover and the Joker.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I tried. All right. Anyway. um, so I watched a little bit of this guy too, and he is amazing. I definitely suggest that you guys go out there and just type him in on YouTube and just watch a little bit of highlight.
Yes. Yeah. Wow. I think he shoots 35% for the 3-point line, 11 something points, and I don't know his efficiency numbers off the top of my head, but 35% from the 3-point line with all those skill traits is ridiculous. Because everything's a tough shot for him. He barely ever gets an open look. Like,
Yeah.
All right. You ready to move on to
Remember
number?
what?
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Oh yes, remember what happened with when y'all said that KP wasn't gonna be great, Luca wasn't gonna be great. Just remember that. Just remember it when you're looking at this guy. Just remember it.
Man, it's special. It's really special. Number 6, we're gonna move on here. This is definitely a guy who I view in a different tier as the top 5 guys on my big board, but I think he's still very good. Benedict Mather, 6'6", 6'9" wingspan, Arizona. I'm pretty sure he's a sophomore. He he's one thinner guy, thin ripped. He's not like a really bulky guy, but really athletic. Really can dunk on people. Like if you watch his highlights, it's gonna be a fun watch because you're gonna see some highlight dunks. Um, really good operator out of the pick and roll. I've seen him make a lot of good passes to the big, cutting to the basket, lobs, all those type of things. He's a very good passer, willing passer. Um, and other than that, he's a really good 3-point shooter as well. It's kind of like he doesn't have any mid-range game other than maybe hitting a pull up if the defense is low. But other than that, he doesn't have anything else. But it's kind of like the Houston Rockets efficient basketball. He's either going to finish at rim with the athleticism because he's 6'6" and lanky and athletic, or he's going to hit a 3-point shot on you. It's one of those two. And he's a good 3-point shot. He's a decent 3-point shot creator for himself. He's not like overly amazing. He's kind of like a little bit like Jaylen Brown, but not like 95% of Jaylen Brown, where it's Jaylen Brown has more twitch, more like shot creation, but it's a similar kind of concept. Also, another guy that's kind of like him is Andrew Wiggins. You know what I mean? That kind of dynamic from athleticism and 3-point shooting. He's going to be a really good player in the NBA. I really feel like he could be a solid 18-4 and you know be a good defender on the defensive end because athleticism and length and gifts. 6'6", two guard is tall. Um, so I could really feel like he could be a really good player on a really good winning basketball team, and I really feel like this is a very good player in the draft. Benedict Mathurin, Arizona.
Okay. Arizona. You said Benedict Mather.
Yes.
Hmm. Woohoo. Hmm. Here we go. Okay. Oh. So for this season, he did better than his career average. He had 17.7 points,
Mm-hmm.
5.6 rebounds, and 2.5 assists. Before his career, he averaged 14.8 points, 5.3 rebounds, and two assists. So that's
Mm.
actually good looking forward, especially if you're looking at it from a scout perspective. That means that
Uh-huh.
he improved. So this
Yeah.
is a guy who's going to work, who's going to improve, who's going to become the best version of himself in the NBA when given the chance.
Yeah. I agree completely. I really feel like he can do those things, and it's really somebody that can be a really good player on a team. I feel very safe about him as well. Just because athletic gifts and the 3-point shooting, you can at least have a guy that can expose closeouts at the very least. Um,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So number 7 is a guy that moved up the board a little bit, a smidge. Not like a ton, but he moved up a little bit. Tari Eason, LSU. I'm pretty sure he's a sophomore. 6'8", 7'2" wingspan. We have his dynamics on there because he was at the combine and measured in. Um, he was really getting underrated earlier on, but most people have him in the top 10 now because he's special. 6'8", really athletic. He can really attack the rim. He plays with physicality. He plays with some good footwork. He has some good moves, a good spin move that he really uses a lot to finish around the rim. Um, Good 3-point shooter, shoots 36.2% from the 3-point line. That's really, really important. He can shot create from the perimeter too, as well. He has step backs and side steps and all those type of things. He's kind of raw scoring wise, like he's not super polished, but this guy has enough intangibles with height, length, and the way he shot creates for himself and his athleticism. You can buy into saying that this guy can be a 20 point per game guy in the future because of his flashes of the skill with his size and his athletic gifts. And when you pair that with a guy that also plays with an intensity that I love intense basketball players. He plays with intensity and he brings that to the defensive end. He loves playing defense. So I really feel like he could be a really solid 3 and D small forward for a while on teams, and I really feel like he's valuable because a 6'8", man, that's perfect size for the small forward position. I really care about size. Size, I really feel like is extremely important in the NBA and athletic gifts, and he checks all those boxes.
Mm. He's 16.9 for this season.
Mm-hmm.
16.9 points, 6.6 rebounds, and 1 assist
Mm-hmm.
for his career. 13 points, 6.3 rebounds, and 1.1 assists. He's played for
Mm.
Cincinnati and LSU.
Yeah. You want to know something amazing you would never guess? He was a
What?
sixth man this year. That's
Really?
just a that's just a coach not knowing basketball. I'm just gonna
Yeah,
put that out there. When your best player is coming off the bench, you don't know basketball.
pretty
Oh my
much.
god.
Yeah.
Okay, fire him. Start the petition. And
Start the position fire.
number 8, man, another man crush is here. Orlando Robinson. Oh
Yes, I
baby.
like Orlando Robinson.
Came in the combine, 6'11", 7'4" wingspan. He's a junior center from Fresno State. And you know what I mean? You're seeing him move up draft boards. He started off when we started off talking about this guy a lot earlier. He's around 48, and now he's going to 24, late 20s. So that means that the people that don't know what they're doing with the draft boards got information from scouts and like, you're dumb, and move him up. So
Mm-hmm.
Orlando Robinson, man, special is his name for me. Um, People have to understand that when you're tall, you can shoot over everybody, and he's 6'11", and he has a really good 3-point shot. He's really going to be able to pick and pop at a high level, and he's going to be able to pick and roll, and be a guy that finishes around the rim. He's not an overly gifted athlete, and that's why people are negative on him. But I've just seen so many players in the NBA be dominant and be really good players for a long time with skill like this, to a certain extent. What I mean by that is he can post. He's probably the best post player in the draft, footwork wise. It's immediate double, but that's not something that's really needed in the modern NBA that much. But he can post and he can mid range. He can be in the mid range, ISO'd out, and he can go get you a bucket. A lot of fadeaways, a lot of skill, a lot of skill. Put it on the ground, finish around the rim. I've just seen so many, I mean, from my time doing the top 75 rankings, I've just seen so many power forwards dominate in the mid post that the list is ridiculously long. And if you have skill and you can score and you have those type of things, that's a translatable traits to the NBA that's been going on for since the NBA started. You know what I mean? And he has those type of things. And then where he becomes special is the man can shot create for himself. He flashes it from the 3-point line, where it's like crossover, pull. Like what?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What? That's where
Yeah.
things become special. Where his intrigue is so ridiculous for me because the man's an ISO guy. Like the man has real ISO skill. I really think he has enough skill in the NBA to be an ISO guy. I really feel like by far the best comparison I've ever come up for this guy is Rasheed Wallace. I'm sticking to it.
Mm.
Just more shot creation from the 3-point line. Rasheed Wallace, you know what I mean? People have to understand that because the power forward position traditionally faded away doesn't mean guys with power forward skill are irrelevant in the NBA. Just because they're usually centers now. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Domantas Sabonis, he has power forward skill from the 1990s. He's a center now, right? Like, come on now. Josef Nurkic, that's a power forward back then. He's a center now, right? He has post skill. He could pass. He's skilled, right? You have to understand that if you're skilled and you're tall, you're invaluable. And for some reason, it's just like 2+2 is not equal 4 for most people on this guy. I disagree. I think Rasheed Wallace would be a center today. You'd have him as a center and be like, man, we have a guy that space out, shoot threes, invaluable. We have a guy that can mid post and average 18 to 20 points per game. I really
Mm-hmm.
feel like that's his range, and I don't see, as long as a team will give, like, it's hilarious. People love Alperen Sengun, right? All he could do is post.
Mm-hmm.
All Alperen Sengun is doing could post, but he got way more hype than this guy, and this guy does so many more things. Like, where
Yeah.
are you guys? It's just I disagree with you because you're stupid. Um, Orlando Robinson, number 8 guy for me on the big board.
So one thing I will say is that his highlights could be very deceiving.
Mm,
Because remember, he was like, "Look at this guy. I need to know if I'm right about him or not." And I
mm,
sent you at first. I was like, Yeah, he's great, but he can only shot create from the mid range, and then his highlights continue on, and then you see him coming down the court, passing. He's in the post. He's shot creating from the 3 point line, and then your mind explodes because you think about, wait a second, he's 7 foot. He's
Yes.
seven. He's a 7 footer. He's like 256 pounds. He's
Yes.
7 foot though, and he's doing this, and I'm like,
Yeah. He's like a poor man's cat.
yeah,
That's probably another really good explanation of him. It's
this
special
cat,
things.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
special. Yeah. All right, you ready to move on to number 9?
Mm-hmm.
All right, Mr. Projection is here. Shaden Sharp, 6'5", 6'11" wingspan. Mr. I sat out the whole year from Kentucky. Hardest guy I've ever, because the situation is ridiculous. I mean, the guy played. You can only find high school tape highlights of him, because he didn't play in college because he sat out the whole season. Um, but he does have flashes of really good footwork at step back, side steps, kind of Bradley Beal ish stuff where he becomes special. Has really good explosion. I'm guessing his coach lied when he said this, but his coach says he has a 48-inch vertical. Um, I think he's lying. I bet you he's 41, maybe 40, but he's got hops. He can finish near the rim, and that's where things become
Yeah.
special, and that's where he's a projection. People are gonna fall in love with his perimeter shot creation and his ability to finish at the rim. He doesn't really show anything else. I don't view him as a great passer, and honestly, even though he's 9 on my big board, this is a guy I'd have to sit down and grill. Because I mean, the guy sitting out the whole season without an injury, does he love basketball? I have to figure that out before I do anything with my draft pick, because that's a sign that he may not. And no matter how gifted you are, if you don't work, I don't care. If you don't want to be great, I don't care. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what he wants to be. You know what I mean? So, um, it's a projection. This guy would move on my board depending on how he does with that and how he does on individual workouts. And it's just, as a guy from the outside looking in, we just can't see those things. So this is where he
Mm-hmm.
is. Somebody's probably gonna buy into the hype and draft him top 7. But yeah, I wouldn't touch him until maybe 9 or 10, and then maybe I would think about the risk.
That's crazy. He sat out a whole season.
He was the number 1 prospect in his class.
I wonder why he sat out.
I forget what the reason was. I think it was I don't know. I think he moved down a year or something like that, or moved up a year and didn't want to play because of the physicality. I don't really remember why, or maybe not to hurt his draft stock. I don't really know. I do not know. Um, you know what I
He didn't
mean?
want to
And
play to hurt his draft stock.
I think maybe that was it. I don't know. Nobody really knows. He hasn't come out and said the real reason why, but I'm sure if I sat him down and was able to talk to him, I'd be able to get it out of him.
Yeah.
Because I would want to know. I would want to know. So this is one of
Yeah.
those guys that you'd have to really grill, and I just don't feel very confident about him. But perimeter shot creation plus athleticism is special two guards in the NBA. There's a long list of them. You mean me bringing them up doesn't even it's like 5 or 10 of them that are elite. So that's where things become special for him. Good
That's
wingspan as
crazy
well.
though.
6'11" is really good. It's really good wingspan. 6'5",
That's
six
crazy.
foot
How do
eleven.
you expect to get drafted if nobody's seen what you play with against future NBA players?
Nah, high school tape, man. International stuff.
But nobody gets
Yeah.
not too many people get drafted out of high school anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It can be a little tough, but I think this is a pretty solid spot for him. I just want to know what he
Okay.
is mentally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's giving Ben Simmons vibes.
Yeah, there's a guy like that last year who's Jaylen Johnson, who was from Duke. He played like the first
Hmm.
12 games, and he was like, "Oh, this is hurting my draft stock," and he pulled out for the rest of the year. And I think got drafted like 21, 22, something like that. He's on the Atlanta Hawks
Really?
bench. Hmm.
Okay.
All right, you ready to transition to the next guy?
Yeah.
All right, next one, man. I'm gonna love talking about this guy. This guy was really didn't come up on my radar until later in the draft, but I'm really happy about this guy. Jalen Williams, 6'5", 7'2" wingspan, shooting guard from Santa Clara. Um, really interesting. Averages 18 points per game, junior college. Phenomenal. 40 borderline 40% from the 3-point line and shoots 80% from the 3-throw line. So that's great, 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 great um dimensions there and statistics there. So where he becomes special is best two card passer in the draft by a gazillion miles. It's James Harden-ish. His passing ability really is James Harden-ish. Um, it's really special, and his ability to carve up defenses, man, is insane. I mean, he really makes the right passes. He runs a lot of pick and rolls, and he has perimeter shot creation for himself. And he can, you know, he's one of those slow operators, right? Where he's not like overly gifted athletically. And that's probably the
Mm-hmm.
knock. I mean, if this guy was gifted athletically, this would be the number one guy. I'd be talking generational talent. Um, because it's very James Harden-ish, where it's like uses his body, highly skilled, understands angles, understands the game of basketball, high basketball IQ, just really understands how to use his body, how to shot create for himself. It's just he's really the best, the highest basketball IQ at the two guard position by a gazillion miles. I mean, this guy can really has a lot of potential. It just depends on how much his athletic traits translate to the NBA. I think he has enough to translate to the NBA with his mental side of things, but he's always going to be a slow operator. But I really view him as a guy that has a high upside, and I really think that his passing ability and his shot creation, man, are special things. And he's always going to be able to be a standstill shooter as well. You know what I mean? But he can finish at the rim. He has unique layup abilities, and it's like 95 or 90% of James Harden is what Jalen Williams is. It's really interesting guy.
Mm-hmm. See what we got for him. So for this past season, he averaged 18 points,
Mm,
4.4 rebounds, 4.2 assists,
that's
and
where
for
it's
his career,
special.
he exactly, yeah, yeah, he definitely, yeah. And then for his career, he has 12.6 points, 3.7 rebounds, and 2.9 assists. That's another guy who's showing growth.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
true. Yeah. His understanding of basketball is really where things become special for him. He just really gets the game, knows what to do. All right, the next guy, number 11, is another Dookie, Mark Williams.
I'm sorry, that was kind of immature.
um. Okay, got you. Took me a second. Um, 7'2", 7'6" wingspan. His measurements are insane. Sophomore from Duke. Um, he's not like overly offensively skilled. He has some post skill, but he mostly just dominates with athletic gifts and physical gifts. I mean, I can't remember the last time I've seen a 7'2" guy move this way. Like
Hmm.
it's been a long time since I've seen a 7'2" guy be able to say, "I believe that guy can switch." It's ridiculous. He has better lateral movement skills than Rudy Gobert. But
Anybody has
he's
a better reliable schools.
it's a volleyball show at the near the rim though. I mean, it's like I'm too athletic. I'm just too his physicality. Like he's just such a powerful guy. He's kind of like Steven Adams, where he's just so powerful and muscled and shouldered and just rocked and just the guy looks like he can put on muscle. He has that frame of I'm going to get big one day, and I'm just because what the real interesting thing for him is yes, the floor is really high. Where I know this guy's going to be a great screen setter because of size, physicality, just right. He understands the game of basketball, and
Mm.
I know at the very least he's going to be a good pick and roll guy, and he's going to be able to rebound. He's going to be able to defend the rim and not be too slow laterally to be exposed. So I know all those things, right? So that's a very great player, and that's his floor. But his ceiling is a guy that can punish people in the post. Like you don't really need a lot of footwork when you're 7'2" and you're taller than everybody else and you're more stronger than everybody else. That's where things become interesting, where his potential lies. And this is a guy with all the gifts, and I really feel like also he really understands the game of basketball. Where I've seen him do, the thing Draymond Green does, where he jumps back when he's defending somebody at the rim to try not get foul calls and have more time to, he does the same thing as that, where he understands basketball. And there's some centers that come out of the draft, like Alex Len, where they look uncoordinated and just like they don't have a feel for the game of basketball. He's not that kind of guy. If a ball's going out of bounds, I've seen him like contort his body and throw it back in. Like he's a coordinated guy. He has a natural feel for the game, and it's just he dunks like the rim is his enemy. So I love that. Yeah, this guy's a really good player, number 11. Somebody's going to get a really good center for a long time.
Okay, Mark Williams.
Yes.
So we have this past season 11.2 points, 7.4 rebounds, and 0.9 assists. For his career, 9.7 points, 6.3 rebounds, and 0.8 assists.
Yeah, he does his role. He does his role.
Yeah.
He's never going to be like
player of the year too.
It's a volleyball show, Chris. Volleyball show. You throw it up, I smack it down.
Right.
All right. Let's move on before we start going crazy with those jokes.
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay. Number 12 is Keegan Murray. A lot of people have him in the top 10. A lot of people have him borderline top 5. I think you're stupid if you have him that high. But 6'8", small forward from Iowa. What he does do is shoots the light out of the ball from the 3-point line. He's always going to be a guy that can come off a pick and pop and, shoot the ball. He's going to be able to space. 80% of the way he scores in the post, and I don't view that as things that are going to translate. But there are moments where he has step back threes. There are moments where he shot creates for himself. There's moments where he comes off of off-ball screens. And those are the skills that'll probably translate to the NBA, and that's why he's intriguing. He's a good defender as well. It's a tough thing too, because when most of the way you score, the bread and butter he scores is in the post. So it's an interesting translation to see if those skills that don't come up every play are going to be able to translate in the NBA. I didn't mean to rhyme there, but it's he's a really good player. I feel like this is a really good spot for him, and this is where I would draft Keegan Murray, who's overrated, by the way.
Crazy, because
his stats are going to be
he has really good numbers. Yeah,
Yeah.
he has really good numbers. Out of 35 games played, last season, 23.5 points, 8.7 rebounds, and 1.5 assists.
Yeah.
Like, I can see why he could be enticing. You're like, 23.5 points? That's more than the number 1 prospect.
Yeah. I think he won college player of the year. That's more than the
number 2 prospect. Huh?
You think it won college player of the year?
He probably did. Let me see. I'm trying not to keep my phone keeps cutting off. I don't. It doesn't say. But then for his career, he averaged 15.8 points, 7 rebounds, and 1 assist.
Yeah, his ability to stripe it from the 3-point line is at least always going to have him in a role in the NBA.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to move on to the number 13 player here. AJ Griffin, another guy that's overrated, top 5 pick. I do not think so. 6'6". Some people call him a small forward. I'd probably have him as a 2 guard, but it is what it is. He has the most ridiculous statistic I've ever seen: 45% from the 3-point line. That's his specialty. You can really knock it down from the 3-point line. There are flashes of shot creation. There are flashes of things that Klay Thompson does, where becomes intriguing, because he's kind of like Klay Thompson, where he's just not that athletic. He's just not really that. And, Klay Thompson's a great defender, and I just don't think this guy's really going to be a really good defender in the NBA. The odd thing, though, is he's bulky, like built like Jimmy Butler, bulky-wise. That's a really interesting thing about him. But he can get to the rim and finish, but it's not just overly exerting of his skill. You know what I mean? He's either going to be a bust, where he gets drafted in the top 10 and he averages 8 points a game, or he can be a solid 14 to 17. I just don't see anything more than that. But
Mhm.
his skill of shooting the lights out of the basketball is going to keep him in the league. Um, and you know, yeah, that's kind of the way I feel. He can disappear sometimes. Seriously, he can. If you watch full games, he can really disappear. You can go a half without being like, I feel like he hasn't made an impact on the basketball game.
Mm. Okay. So this season, 10.4 points, 3.9 rebounds, and 1 assist. He's only played 39 games.
Yeah, yeah, one and done.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna kick it to our number 14 player on the big board, Jalen Duran, freshman from Memphis, 6'11" center. Um, all he does is be athletic. Like he just has gifts coming out the wazoo athletically. I mean, he's the most athletic center in the draft. He's going to be able to be a volleyball show near the rim. He's going to be a great pick and roll guy, rebound at a high level, set really good screens. He's already has an NBA body. I think he's probably 6'11", 260s, 270 if I had to guess, rocked up. He's a man. He's not a college guy. He's a man. Um, he's gonna be able to be really solid in the NBA. He's more of a vertical athlete than a lateral athlete, so I don't think he's really gonna be like Bam out of bio, where it's like just ridiculous switching and stuff like that. But he reminds me a lot of DeAndre Jordan, a lot. And
Mhm.
if you had to read through that draft and you had to say, "Oh, I don't really know that much about DeAndre Jordan," you probably draft him around here because if he develops any skill, he's gonna be special. But DeAndre Jordan never did, right? But DeAndre Jones is still a really good center in the NBA because of rebounds and shot blocking and lobs. And, he's just
Yeah.
is gifted that way. So that's what Jalen Duran is. Jalen Duran's a really gifted guy. Boom, he has really good floor and ceiling that you can buy into because athletic gifts.
All right. So this season, he only played 29 games this
Hmm.
season. So 12 points, 8.1 rebounds, and 1.3 assists.
Yeah. And he did most of that with a guy that's like basically playing the center position for the team, or like a really, really big power forward too. So he did
Yeah.
really have the lion's shares. He probably would have been a 12, a 14 and 10 guy, 14 points and 10 rebounds. Well,
Mm.
we're making an in-game adjustment to this. This podcast is going to be 1 through 15 on the big board, and this is going to be the 15th guy, and we'll have a part 2, and that'll be 16 through 30. Number 15, the last guy you're going to hear in this podcast before you get the pleasure of switching to the next one is going to be Johnny Davis. He's moved down my board. 6'5", 6'8" wingspan, small shooting guard from Wisconsin. This is one of those guys that is deceptively athletic. He is really good to be able to finish around the rim. Really good mid-range skill. I mean, he's a bucket getter, and the opposing team was like, "Let's just double him and make everything hard for him," and that's why we're gonna win because he has nobody else on his team that can score. That was basically basically the equation. Um,
Mhm.
he's a pretty okay 3-point shooter, 33 to 34%. You know what I mean? And he has plays with intensity, plays with defense. Probably has 80% from the 3-point line. But what I really think about this guy is I kind of got wrong about James Booknight. I think in the draft from last year. And he kind of reminds me of James Booknight, where you have to really take into account height in the draft and athletic gifts in the draft. And the two guard position is one of those nitpicky positions where it's anywhere from 6'3" to 6'7". And depending on how athletic you are, it depends on how good you can be in the NBA. Or if you're really tall at 6'7", like Kobe, you don't have to be the next coming of Mike, but you can be really athletic and you can be dominant. He's 6'5" and he's just not overly athletic. Like Shaden Sharp's overly athletic. Jalen Williams overly skilled from everything. High basketball IQ. He's just not like overly vertically athletic where I just love him and I really believe in him. So he does have some six man potential where it's like he doesn't bust, but he's a six man. So
Mhm.
that's the way I view Johnny Davis, and he's an interesting prospect. You can really debate in yourself a lot about where he is, but I think 15 is right for him.
Yeah. So I think he played at least 2 seasons because he played a total of 62 games.
Mm-hmm.
Last season he averaged 19.7 points, 8.2 rebounds, 2.1 assists, and for his career he averaged 13.4 points, 6.2 assists. I mean no, 6.2 rebounds and 1.6 assists.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, he has really good stats. He's a really good player. You know, I he's probably gonna be a starter in the NBA. But worst case scenario is a 6 man, and you're chilling. You're chilling with a good 6 man.
yeah,
Yeah. All right. Well, this is gonna be the end of part one of this big board. We're really excited to give you 16 through 30. I mean, it's just ran long because I got so much in the brain, just got to spew it all out, and it's tough. You know what I mean? Um, so yeah, we're gonna roll it on. Next part is gonna be part two, and then we also have an NBA mock draft, which is gonna be coming out as well. You guys are gonna want to check that out. I got a lot of guys in the back end of this topic already that we'll probably be talking about.